The Premier League is the most watched league not just in football, but in all of world sport. Broadcast in 188 of the world's 93 countries, as recognised by the United Nations, and probably pirated in the other 5, English football's top flight has a reach and brand awareness that most global corporations can only dream of. With that in mind, stupidly, I thought that it would be a good idea to try and figure out the most popular Premier League team in every country on Earth. I say stupidly because it turns out that trying to figure out the most popular Premier League team in Papua New Guinea isn't quite as easy as you might think. Or if, unlike me, you're not a total idiot, it's just as hard as you'd think. With some countries, like China for example, there is actually quite a bit of data, analysing how many followers each team has and how many interactions they get on the Chinese social media site Weibo, the size of their Chinese supporters groups, and the viewing figures of their games there. Presumably because China is an enormous and increasingly lucrative market for Premier League clubs, so they have a major interest in getting hold of that information. In the case of a country like the Republic of Congo, by contrast, which is home to just 5 million significantly less lucrative prospective football fans, there is next to nothing to go on. In those instances, it's typically just a case of analysing search activity, if that's even available, and social media followers from there. That means the teams for some countries are likely to be much more reliable than others, but the alternative was travelling to every country on Earth with a clipboard and trying to poll a representative sample of residents in an effort to determine which Premier League team is actually most popular, which, quite frankly, didn't seem to me at least to be a worthwhile use of 5 to 10 years of my life. I do apologise for the lack of commitment to the channel and to its content. Anyway, I'm not going to go through country by country because that would take hours upon hours, and there are only so many times that I can utter the words Liverpool and Manchester United before you lose the will to live. Initially then, I'll just focus on the most populated countries, which is how I have arranged the first 100 of them, and I'll try to group some by region, continent, or by mutual most popular Premier League team. It should be said, one thing that was clear when researching this video is that whilst the Premier League certainly rules the roost when it comes to the biggest leagues, in an awful lot of countries, and I would be tempted to say most, the most popular Premier League team is still only the second or third most popular foreign club, behind either Real Madrid, Barcelona, or indeed both. Right, without any further ado then, here is, as best as I can tell at least, the most popular Premier League team in every country in the world. I said there is good analysis and data for China in the introduction, and that Real Madrid and Barcelona are often more popular than any Premier League teams, and sure enough, the La Liga giants are reportedly the 2 most popular teams in the most populated nation on Earth. Manchester United are nonetheless the most popular Premier League team, not too far behind Barca and Madrid, followed by Chelsea and Liverpool. There are some sources that claim that Chelsea are even more popular than Manchester United in China, though their methodology seems a little bit less reliable to me, and it makes sense that the Red Devils should reign supreme, given their extensive marketing efforts in China over the years. Manchester United are also one of only 5 Premier League teams to have had a Chinese player, along with Man City, Everton, Arsenal, and Charlton Athletic, though the player in question, Dongfang Zhao, only ever played 1 Premier League game for them. The Red Devils also take top spot in India, which is soon to overtake China as the most populated nation on Earth, but it's Liverpool who reign supreme in the United States, reportedly having overtaken Manchester United in terms of popularity, or at least in terms of interest, over the last 2 years. That's probably due to Liverpool's Premier League and Champions League successes during that time, whilst Manchester United's EFL Cup win this season was their first trophy in 6 years. It should be said, there is very little to split Liverpool, Manchester United, and most of the top 6, by most metrics, in the United States, where Fulham, owing to a history of American players, Everton, and Leeds United most recently also have sizable followings for very similar reasons. Manchester United come in narrowly ahead of Chelsea and Arsenal in Indonesia, which is the most populated nation on earth in which football is the most popular sport, and they also take top spot in Pakistan and Nigeria, though only narrowly ahead of Arsenal and Liverpool in the latter's case. Liverpool, possibly thanks to the likes of Alisson, Fabinho, Roberto Firmino, and previously the likes of Lucas Leiva and Philippe Coutinho, are the most popular Premier League team in Brazil, and they also come in narrowly ahead of Manchester United in Bangladesh. Our first non-Liverpool or Manchester United inclusion, which I did warn you, could get a bit monotonous, hence the format, perhaps unsurprisingly, comes courtesy of Chelsea in Russia, given that the Blues were owned by a fairly high-profile Russian oligarch for almost 2 decades, until his assets were frozen by the British government as a result of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and he was forced into selling the club. During Abramovich's reign, Chelsea also signed 2 Russian internationals, namely Yuri Zhirkov and Alexei Smertin. Meanwhile, Dmitry Karin spent 7 years at the club before Abramovich even arrived. Between them, those 3 constitute 37.5% of the 8 Russians ever to have played Premier League football. It's back to Liverpool in Mexico and in Japan, with a special mention for Wolves who punch above their weight in Mexico, one can only assume, due to the presence of Raul Jimenez since 2018. Arsenal feature for the first time as the most popular club in the Philippines, where they have a decent-sized supporters group, and the Gunners make it 2 from 2 as supposedly the most popular club, narrowly ahead of Manchester United, in Ethiopia as well. There are no prizes for guessing which Premier League team is most popular in Egypt, with Mohamed Salah having rather a significant say on that front, one would imagine. Meanwhile, Manchester United reassert their own dominance in Vietnam, DR Congo, and in Turkey, despite never having had a player from any of those 3 countries. It should be said, no Vietnamese players have ever played for any Premier League clubs, but with the other 2 the point still stands. Unfortunately, Iran is the largest nation with virtually no data, and therefore our first non-applicable. Brentford, Brighton and Fulham are the only current Premier League clubs to have had Iranian players, though I would be surprised if the answer were any of them. Based upon neighbouring countries, the most probable, most popular Premier League team in Iran is likely to be Manchester United. I know, that is nowhere near as fun, so we'll just pretend that it's Brentford instead if you'd like. The next 3 largest countries are Germany, France and the United Kingdom. The Germans and French have their own very established football league systems and are therefore far more likely to support one of their own clubs than any English team. But Chelsea are nonetheless said to be the most popular club in Germany, perhaps mainly among Bayern Munich's rivals who were glad to see them beaten in their own backyard by the Blues in the 2012 Champions League final, though Chelsea have also had some big-name German players like Michael Ballack, Antonio Rudiger and Timo Werner, along with Kai Havertz who is still at the club. Meanwhile, Manchester United reportedly harbour the most interest in France, narrowly ahead of Arsenal, who I had expected to take top spot, given Arsene Wenger's extensive reign at the club, and the presence of French footballing royalty like Robert Pires, Patrick Vieira, and of course Thierry Henry. I suppose Manchester United have also had some big-name French players themselves over the years, such as Fabien Barthez, Laurent Blanc, and the indomitable Eric Cantona. Those are the most popular Premier League clubs in the 21 most populated nations on Earth, which is, of course, a multiple of 7. You know, HITC Sevens. It's kind of a vibe. And if I give the other 170-odd countries as much time as that, I'm afraid I'll run the risk of several borders having shifted by the time you've finished watching. Instead, we will zoom out a little. Broadly speaking, Manchester United and Liverpool are the most popular Premier League clubs in Asia, with a couple of notable exceptions. So Manchester United are the most popular Premier League team in Myanmar, Mongolia, Iraq, Uzbekistan, Yemen, Afghanistan, Cambodia, Malaysia and Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, Liverpool take the crown in Thailand, Saudi Arabia, Kazakhstan and Brunei. I would imagine that Newcastle United wouldn't be too pleased about one of those, although a lot of the data probably dates back to before the Magpies were taken over by Saudi Arabia's brutal and bloody dictatorial regime. The exceptions, most notably, are South Korea, which is a country of over 50 million people where Tottenham Hotspur reigns supreme, thanks almost solely to Korean legend Heung-min Son, Nepal, Jordan and Laos, where Chelsea are said to be top dogs, and Taiwan, where, and I've no idea why, apparently Arsenal are the most popular Premier League club. I'm not saying I've no idea why, as a slate against Arsenal there, to be clear. I just mean that I've no idea why they are anomalous to their neighbours. In Africa, meanwhile, Arsenal and Chelsea often feature ahead of Liverpool and Manchester United, with Chelsea especially popular in West Africa, and Arsenal enjoying a lot of support in the north and in the east. Chelsea are reported to be the most popular Premier League team in Kenya, Angola, the Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Mali, Burkina Faso and Benin. Arsenal are the Titans in Tanzania, Algeria, Sudan, Uganda, Morocco, Madagascar, Niger, Chad, South Sudan, Rwanda and in Burundi. Meanwhile, Liverpool and Manchester United do still attract significant followings in Africa, of course, with Liverpool apparently being the biggest club in Malawi, Zambia, Namibia, Somalia and Zimbabwe, and Manchester United the biggest in South Africa, Ghana, Guinea and Tunisia amongst others. In Mozambique, a country very close to this channel's heart, there is apparently nothing to split Arsenal and Chelsea, though both do of course pale in comparison to the support that Deportivo Nampula enjoyed in their heyday, and Senegal is another country without a clear winner, with nothing between Chelsea and Liverpool in the land of Bissap, Teranga, and the reigning African champions. Some of those are easy to understand, Chelsea being the most popular club in Ivory Coast for example, given Didier Drogba's near decade at Stamford Bridge, Liverpool's popularity in Zimbabwe, given Bruce Grobbelaar spent 13 years and played over 600 games at Anfield, and Arsenal taking top spot in Rwanda, given that the Rwandan government pays a small fortune to sponsor the club's shirts, and Rwanda's president and de facto dictator Paul Kagame is a self-professed Arsenal fan who even tweeted criticising the club's performance after they lost 2-0 to Brentford in the opening game of last season. In North and Central America, or in the CONCACAF nations perhaps I should say, just to avoid any confusion, Manchester United are the most popular club in Canada, Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Suriname, Guatemala and in the Dominican Republic. Liverpool are the most popular in Jamaica, Barbados, Montserrat and in the Bahamas. And Chelsea, for some reason, are apparently the biggest Premier League club in Cuba. Liverpool's popularity in Jamaica is fairly easily understood, in light of John Barnes' exploits at Anfield, and to a lesser extent Raheem Sterling's. Likewise Manchester United in Trinidad and Tobago, given Dwight York's time at Old Trafford. As to why Chelsea are apparently the most popular Premier League team in Cuba, your guess is as good as mine. In fact, if you're watching this video from any of the countries that are less obvious or where the data may be less reliable, and you want to either explain why that club is the most popular or why it might be wrong and which club actually is, I'm sure that I'm not the only one who would be interested to hear some of those stories. And even if it is literally just me, still let me know. In South America, which has an incredibly vibrant football culture, and most people support a team from their own continent first and foremost, aside from those already mentioned, Chelsea are apparently the most popular club in Colombia and in Argentina, recently having overtaken Everton in Colombia, presumably since James Rodriguez left, and Leeds United in Argentina, which one would imagine was very Marcelo Bielsa dependent. Manchester United take top spot in Ecuador, thanks partly to Antonio Valencia perhaps, and there is nothing to split them and Arsenal in Chile, notably two of Alexis Sanchez's former clubs. Liverpool reign supreme in both Peru and in Uruguay, the latter most likely because of Luis Suarez, and now Darwin Núñez of course, and with the former, Peru, I must admit that I thought Newcastle United might have been in with a shout due to the legacy of Norberto Solano, but apparently that doesn't fully compensate for the Magpies not having been very good for a while before this season. But Newcastle United are the most popular club in one South American nation, namely Paraguay, which one can only assume is thanks largely to Paraguayan international Miguel Almiron, who is the second Paraguayan to have played for Newcastle after Diego Gavilan, and is enjoying a very good season at St James's Park. And last but not least, Manchester City earn a rare inclusion as apparently the most popular Premier League team in both Bolivia and in crisis-ridden Venezuela. Oil respects oil, I suppose. Over in Europe, again where domestic football hoovers up a lot of attention in most countries rather than overseas leagues, Chelsea are apparently the most popular Premier League team in Italy and Spain, along with Germany, as I mentioned before, and there have been a lot of Italian greats who have starred for Chelsea over the years, including Gianfranco Zola and Gianluca Vialli. Meanwhile, Spanish international Cesar Azpilicueta has been starring for the Blues for more than a decade and captaining the club for much of that time. Chelsea also take top spot in Croatia and in the Czech Republic, the latter surely thanks to Petr Cech there. Liverpool are the most popular club in most of the Nordic countries, such as Norway, Finland and Denmark, the exception there being Sweden, where Manchester United are slightly more popular than both Liverpool and Arsenal. Liverpool are also the Premier League's top dogs in Ireland, Ukraine, Cyprus, Malta, Hungary and Estonia. Manchester United are the kings of Portugal, perhaps that is the Ronaldo factor. Bulgaria, maybe because of Berbatov. Romania, despite never having had any Romanian players. The Netherlands, they have had lots of great Dutch players. Greece, and as mentioned previously, Sweden. Arsenal are the most popular club in Belarus and Poland apparently, narrowly ahead of Liverpool in the latter instance, and Manchester City apparently are the most popular club in Belgium, presumably with Kevin De Bruyne, doing a lot of the heavy lifting there. Over in Australia and Oceania, Manchester United reign supreme in Australia, but it is their old foes Liverpool who are reported to be the most popular overseas team in New Zealand. Because of the chaotic way in which I've gone about this, I'm sure that there are some countries or far-flung archipelagos that I've missed out, and a few that I've mentioned twice. Singapore, who I don't think I have mentioned as of yet, have the most love for Manchester United. I couldn't find any data for Monaco, San Marino, or the Holy See, also known as the Vatican, nor is there any data, unsurprisingly perhaps, for North Korea, Syria, and Eritrea. The biggest takeaway, I suppose, is that Manchester United and Liverpool are quite popular, nothing new there, although often not as popular as Real Madrid and Barcelona, also no great revelation. And Arsenal and Chelsea are the next most popular Premier League teams across most of the world, yet again, exactly as you might expect. I was really hoping that Bournemouth would have an enormous cult-like following in Turkmenistan, or that Nottingham Forest might have hordes of adoring fans in Mongolia, owing to their back-to-back European Cup wins under Brian Clough. But alas, apparently it isn't so. If you think that I'm wrong, or any of the data that I've looked up is wrong, feel free to put it right in the comments, and if you are from a country where a random football club, English or otherwise, does enjoy massive support, let us know about it in the comments, since that could make for an interesting video all of its own. Anyway, that is it for today's video. Thank you all very much as ever for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure, of course, it goes without saying, that you are subscribed both to this channel and to my second or backup channel, both of which should be on your screens now and have notifications turned on. You can also find me on both Twitter and on Instagram via the username @HITC Sevens on both.